Committee meeting to order for Monday, May 6, 2024. You'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, you want to read the mission, vision, and value statement? Sure. Thank you.
Mission statement: educating each student to the highest standard, motivating them to reach their fullest potential, and graduating them to college, career, and life ready. Vision statement: our schools are a place where children belong. Each student is known by name, strength, and need, and provided the education and opportunities to achieve success. Our values: striving for equity, inclusion, and belonging, celebrating diversity, engaging the community, supporting the whole child, promoting and achieving academic excellence.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start out with introductions. Go around the table. I'll start. My name is Dave Jones, Zone 3, D21 board member.
Cindy Miller, I work for the superintendent's office at the school district. Judy Richardson, I'm a D21 board member.
Jared Dawson, D21 budget committee board member.
Adrian Lopez, Zone 1 board member.
Jennifer Gunter, budget committee member.
Jose Aparicio, Zone 6 board member.
Lisa Hollister, representative 21
Joel Bach, Zone 5 board member.
Damon Elledge, Zone 2 board member.
I'm Randy Anderson, the chief financial officer.
Dr. Bernal, superintendent.
Okay, first action item is to elect a chair and vice chairperson for the budget committee. Any nominations for chair?
Question on that really quick. So do they not stand as they were before, or do they get every time we meet, are we electing a new person?
So it's every year
Okay,
it changes.
okay. I'm just making, I'm like, we're not on the same, okay. All right. And are those of everybody here, or is that only like committee members, like
Just committee members.
none of y'all can,
Right.
okay, so right now it's just two of us that wait, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you come in, yes,
That's
three.
okay. I know it. Right at the meeting.
Right.
Oh, nope.
Oh, we have Anthony on one.
Oh,
Hi, Anthony.
Hi, I'm
Anthony,
sorry
you
I'm
there?
at JV track championship with my son.
sound's coming through. He's working on the speakers.
Can you hear me?
Did you say anything? Is he muted?
Yeah. Currently you're muted, Anthony. Could you try speaking again?
Yes, this is Anthony Pereira. I'm at a JV championship track meet tonight, so I'm attending by Zoom.
Okay, so I'll nominate Jared as chair and Anthony as vice chair. Let's get it started out of the chute.
I'll second Jared. I think we need to make sure that Anthony's with us.
I am with you. Hello.
So just do one.
Can you hear me now?
So we have a nomination for Jared for chair.
Second.
As long as you guys help me along, I am very unfamiliar with the procedures, so I will need a little bit of some guidance, but I'm okay being chair.
All right, so all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Abstain?
Aye.
Here, do you mind if I assist with the IT stuff here?
First job.
Do we have a source
Oh, he's
set
the
up,
thumbs up
output?
part.
So it should be out.
Oh, okay.
Going out to the speaker right here.
That's why I was looking.
Yeah. Line is running straight.
Did you just delete the vice chair? Delete your first student?
So, congratulations, Jared. We'll move on to vice chair, and we have one nominee for vice chair.
Did you nominate him as a slate?
Hmm?
I thought you nominated him as a
Both of them.
slate. Yeah, well, we need to do it one at a time.
Do one.
And so, you said
I nominate, or, I nominate Anthony, yeah. I nominate Anthony as vice chair.
does he accept?
Anthony, do you accept vice chair nomination?
Yep. Thumbs up.
Okay, give thumbs up.
Any other nominations? If none, all in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
We should run a quick test.
Abstain? Ayes have it. Congratulations, Anthony.
We're working
Glorious.
on your voice working here, Anthony. Just be patient with us. Yeah, it's definitely the output. It's somewhere between the laptop and the speakers.
So the laptop's muted.
Okay, well,
So the speaker's definitely working.
Can you hear me?
Does it have to do with the laptop because it's muted? But last time, we don't usually unmute it because it does a feedback.
Well, the sound is coming from his laptop in particular.
This laptop's muted.
Well, I understand that, but the sound is coming from this one to the speaker. So this one should be muted, so you don't get that reverb. But this one, we're just trying to figure out the output. It's a fairly common Zoom issue, as you probably have all experienced at one point or another. But let me know if I need to jump back into
Yep.
that.
it's all yours
It's
now.
all
Page 5 will explain it.
okay.
Thank you for your patience, everyone. I was trying to help using my day job for this. That's where, oh, thank you. Agenda. All right, so, how should I start? Superintendent. Okay, so let's call the budget meeting to order and Pledge of Allegiance, presented by David Jones. Oh, I did all that. Oh,
You're on number
thank you.
4.
Oh, thank you, thank you. The budget message and comments presented by Carolyn Bernal, the superintendent.
Thank you.
Has everyone had an opportunity to read the budget message? Read it, if you've already had an opportunity
The proposed table contents, yeah, well, this must come on March, yes.
to. Okay.
I
don't-
have.
Oh, great.
Maybe we could read it because we can't tell if Anthony has heard
Absolutely.
it, and just for the record,
I
because
sure will.
unfortunately had a chance to go over this large document as well.
Yes. So, dear North Wasco County School District Budget Committee members and community, it continues to be an honor to serve the students, staff, families, and community of the Dalles as North Wasco County School District Superintendent. The following proposed budget is a culmination of months of behind the scene work, meeting with several of our internal stakeholders, gathering input, and listening to the continued challenges and lived experiences of our students, families, and employees this past year. What I submit for your consideration is a proposed budget for the North Wasco County School District for the 24-25 school year that is in accordance with ORS 294.391 and representative of continuing to provide a level of service aimed at supporting and better serving our students, families, employees, and greater community. The budget that follows represents the financial plan for North Wasco County School District 21 for the next fiscal year. This document, the related budget committee review, and the applicable filings with the Wasco County Assessor, the Oregon Department of Revenue, and the Oregon Department of Education are intended to meet the legal requirements so that the district may immediately expend funds beginning July 1, 2024. Revenue projections included in this budget indicate a 3.2% increase in available general fund revenues. Total budgeted general fund revenue for 23-24 was $39.7 million, compared to projected revenue of $40.6 million for 24-25. This budget is the plan for the final year of the 23-25 biennium. This budget document includes levying local property taxes in the general fund, Fund 100, As one of the legal requirements of the Budget Committee, you will be asked to approve a permanent tax rate levy of $5.2399 per $1,000 of the taxable assessed value for the general fund. This financial plan is driven by our district's mission, educating each student to the highest standards while motivating them to reach their fullest potential and graduating them to be college, career, and life ready. And our vision, our schools are a place where children belong. Each student is known by name, strength, and need, and provided the education and opportunities to achieve success, and is guided by our district goals, the District 2027 strategic plan, and individual school work plans. The major highlights for the district budget include the following items. The budget is built on a state school fund of $10.2 billion. The legislatively approved state school fund is allocated 49% to the first year of the biennium and 51% to the second. This budget includes the roll-up costs, the current level of service, staffing, programs, and operations. This budget includes general fund revenues from the state that are expected to increase by approximately $0.97 million. This is attributed to a slight increase in funding per pupil. This budget does not include any federal coronavirus relief dollars, or ESSER dollars, which we use to mitigate any circumstances related to the pandemic. This budget includes risk management and liability insurance costs, which are expected to increase 17% due to increased high-cost claims across the state. This budget includes the continuation of the Innovations Academy, which houses several existing North Wasco pathway programs and consolidates them into one called the Innovations Academy and Innovations Virtual Academy. This budget includes the continuation of the Therapeutic Learning Center created during the 23-24 school year at Chenoweth Elementary School, which includes a classroom teacher, 2 assistants, and contracted services with the next door, in order to support our most dysregulated students in grades K-5 across the district who are in need of a higher level of support than can be provided in the regular classroom setting, and with the goal of teaching skills and strategies so that each student can once again assimilate back to the mainstream general education classroom setting. This budget includes the completion of the seismic grant for Chenoweth Elementary School for the retrofit of the cafeteria and the gymnasium for $2 million. And this budget includes increases for contracted salary and benefit increases. I'd like to thank all staff involved in the preparation of this budget, especially CFO Randy Anderson and all of our fiscal office staff. I'd also like to express my appreciation to the members of the Budget Committee for their service, thoughtful analysis, and consideration of this proposed budget. Currently, districts across Oregon are making difficult decisions regarding their ability to roll forward with current staff and programs. For some, it means reductions in staff or programs next year. For others, it means depleting reserves for one or both years in order to keep the current service level. North Wasco's 24-25 budget is lean and will include monitoring of expenditures extremely closely while exploring all funding alternatives, such as grant funding opportunities where possible. We are hopeful that legislators will be responsive to advocacy efforts still going on at this time, and will increase the state school fund while time allows. In closing, it's important to restate that an inadequate state school fund coupled with the loss of federal dollars to maintain current levels of service for North Wasco for 24-25 makes for some difficult adjustments in this budget. And yet I hold a spirit of optimism that our state and elected representatives understand that the nationwide conditions of workforce shortages paired with increased inflation and wages are not going away overnight. We will be in the economic predicament for the foreseeable future. There needs to be a more stable and adequate funding source and commitment in Oregon for K-12 education. Lastly, I'm proud and humbled to serve the North Wasco County School District and to bring forward a budget that supports the mission, vision, and goals of this school district, striving to create schools where each child feels a sense of belonging. The adults know each student by name, strength, and need, and students are provided educational opportunities in order to reach their full potential, achieve success, and graduate to be college, career, or life ready. I offer this balanced 24-25 budget proposal to the Budget Committee for your consideration.
Thank you.
So I believe that puts us on to number 5, the presentation and review of the budget documents by Randy Anderson.
Okay, thank you very much. Good. As Dr. Brown said, I'd like to echo her thanks, my appreciation to the business office staff that really were working extra hard to get this thing, although it was done late, but it was done as quickly as I could get it assembled. And in particular, I want to publicly thank Nancy Latham because she has been the one that's I've turned to. She's the one that's had this shoulder the changes that I made in the budget to make it. So it's, I appreciate that very much. So, the essence, well, before I begin, I think this is probably the most important and least enjoyable part of my job. And I think we need to recognize that this is 260 pages of estimates. It's my best estimate. It's a capacity so that we can operate next year. It's a financial plan for next year. But if it were exactly as budgeted, it would be the biggest coincidence in the world. So, that being said, I think as you may, or those of you that had a chance to review it, there are some obvious errors in this thing that I'm making notes of now that will be corrected, and we won't kill another forest to produce the approved budget. We'll just do it so that the one that goes to the school board will be having things where they belong. For instance, I made a little summary and then I find out that transfers in and transfers out don't equal by $1,000, so I gotta fix that. Those of you that got very deep in it probably find that Dry Hollow has 2 principals and Chenoweth has none. So that obviously needs fixed. As I was explaining this morning, this whole system is, the state accounting system is, the account numbers are 19 digits long, and if you get 1 digit wrong, it falls in the wrong place in the budget. So obviously, and Nancy Lathrop and I were trying to key things at the same time. So whatever errors there are, I'm assuming are mine, not hers. So I must have put 152 when I meant 150. So in any event, there's some other little things, smaller things but it's important to fix all the things that we identify, and we can do that. For instance, we have the director that manages, not Sodexo, but our employee that manages the facilities department is right now coded to facilities instead of facilities management. So that's an easy one to fix. The after-school programming, in my mind, is in the wrong function. It's in a treatment program instead of an enhancement program. So those, as we identify them, are easy to fix. That being said, I think some of them have been reported in the wrong function for a number of years.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly. Sure.
Anthony, can you talk now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, very
Perfect.
easily. Yep. Thank you.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
So, and again, this, I came late to employment with the district to try to pull this together, and I think it is our best estimate, and I've forewarned the board that it's probably not our final estimate. I think it's right. I know it's legally compliant. It will give us the ability to levy taxes and turn the corner on the year, but I fully expect that I'll have to do a supplemental budget sometime next year to get things straightened out. So,
I do have a quick question for you
Certainly.
before we move forward. So I understand you correctly. What you're saying as far as this budget, it's an estimate, it's your best timely that you could have done in the time allowed. Did I hear you correctly say that maybe in previous years, some of the line item numbers were not correct? Or was that maybe what had happened when you were creating this? Because you're right, there is some cattywampus things in this budget, so I just want to be clear on that.
and I do too. I think there are, as we charge things to a different function, even the wording in the accounting manual sounds like it says other programs, but if you don't know that there are other special ed programs, they get put in the wrong spot. So I think there's room for interpretation.
Sure.
So all I'm gonna do is, it's gonna be my interpretation, whoever comes after me may want to say, what the heck did we put it there for? And move it again. I think the essence of what I'm doing doesn't change the overall operation. I think it changes, because it's, right now, it will all upload to the state and be fine. They don't, and the ones we're talking about aren't a great deal of dollars, but there are some grants coming that are some big dollars. Summer programming and Jumpstart Kindergarten, some of those are gonna be big, so. I guess I'm putting them where I think my best professional judgment would put them.
Okay, so more was just kind of in reference for me, like just, common taxpayer, Adele citizen, when you go from 3 years of zeros to something that's tens of thousands, I was like,
Yes. So
that's where I was trying to figure out, so that's what I'm to understand moving forward when we go over this budget is, that was to your best interpretation, why maybe some of the dollars were there versus zeros the previous year.
the other thing that really complicates that is what we just talked about is expiring. So those very same expenses might have been in the ESSER grant on the very same line item and function with a different fund number. So those very same expenses might have been paid for out of a different pocket.
Sure.
So to that end is the summary thing that I prepared. Again, I don't have much line by line information to go through. I'm happy to address whatever people have seen, but my preference, pardon me, is to take the global view of the budget as a whole. And so I prepared these two pie charts of where the revenues come from. The particular ones that I more like are these that I do it by location and then I do it by function, same budget. So that avoids the problem that you just described. If I do it with all funds together, it doesn't matter if it was grant funded, general funded, or whatever, the cost of each function ought to compare to the ones before it. So we might, with your indulgence, we'll step down through this and then we can deal with particular questions that you might have come across.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Randy. Sorry to interrupt, but when you are talking about grant funded and those are those in process or have those been guaranteed that we're going to get?
Well, guaranteed is kind of a strong word. But no, in terms of history, I'm talking about that it might have been paid for with ESSER money and now those funds are no longer available, so they're in the general fund. Go ahead.
But those funds you're talking about that are going to come in, are those grants that we've applied for and received or not as of yet?
For the very most part, yes, they are. Even that.
They're applied for, or have we received?
We have
commitment.
Yes. Well, many of them are continuation. They're a 2-year grant. So this is the year of a 2-year grant. The other one that's always problematic is that the federal fiscal year is October to October and ours is July to July. And so we won't know what the federal, for instance, federal Title I grant is until later, after the budget year, after next school year. Well, before the school year starts, but after this budget's finalized. So they do put out some guidance and we do have some carryover unspent funds from this year. So it's our best guess at what the federal funding, the federal funding is guaranteed. I just don't precisely know the amount, if that makes sense.
I understand that. So there's going to be some interpretation.
So they'll, the Title I's allocated based on poverty and we will get an allocation. They're saying it's going to be X percent higher or lower. And, but we take that into account when we're estimating the expenses like in Title I or 2 or 3 or 7 or the rest of them. So I think they're reasonable estimates of grant funds that we can expect to receive.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess there aren't many certainties in this world, but that's as certain as I can be. Frankly, I think the first page I get is budget summary by cost center. And it has some peculiarities to it that I'll point out as we go through it. But so, for instance, when you look at the very first one, Chenoweth Elementary, it's significantly higher with about the same student population as Dry Hollow. But Chenoweth has a bunch of extra programs in it, and because they're located in that building, it shows up in this cost center. And their spending per student looks relatively way higher than, but this has the SLC and the TLC and some of those other programs located in the building. The other one that really sticks out that way is Watonka campus, because those costs for Watonka campus clearly aren't just for the Innovations Academy, it's for everything that's located in that building. So the way this thing is laid out, I gathered the entire budget together by things that are occurring at Chenoweth Elementary School. And of those things, the parenthetical one is the salary and benefits amount that's included in that number. The FTE I'll get to in a moment because it's problematic for me. I use the average enrollment for the year, and then the other one is just the spending per student. The FTE thing, I think Jose asked about it at the school board meeting. I did the best I could, but last year's budget didn't include FTE information by function, so I just had job titles and I tried to allocate it as reasonably as I could. And the only one that I really think I'm pretty confident in is the very first actual one I found that information. One of the troubles with the FTE information, it's easy to get it from you can get the numbers from the payroll system, but you have to get them before the school year's over, because when you roll over to the next school year, they're all gone. And if you don't print them out, and I don't think they were printed out in these 2 intervening years, so I did the best I could. So it's not going to be as easy as, Jose, as you might have thought, where we can just say this would compare to the year before, or the budget year before shows 2 people up or 2 people down, and we could identify who those people are. I don't think it's to that level of confidence. The other thing that's funny about this business is we calculate FTE different than everybody else in the world. In that, to be a 1.0 FTE, you have to work year-round, 8 hours a day. That makes it 1. We do FTE by how many hours you work per day, period. Because everybody has different calendars. So they're full-time, whether they work, if they work a full shift half a year, they would be counted as a 1. That's just the way it is. I didn't invent it, that's just the way it is. So, going down through here, I think you can see the comparability among the schools. Mosier, I think, is a little smaller because they had an allocation of the student investment account in last year's budget, and they do in this year's budget too, but it's what's remaining to be spent. Middle school, Concord campus, I think we talked about. The high school, budget to budget's almost identical.
You said the high school budget was almost identical?
The things that are located at the high school, yes.
So I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Because as I was going through here on the high school budget, I noticed that at the bottom, it all looks the same or very, very close. But I was going through there and I noticed a drop in FTE in math, PE, language arts, and there's one more in here, I don't know, but those are all core classes. Actually, a foreign language.
Yeah.
Those are all core classes. Are we losing teachers? And then it's the same, but we're also moving in. I don't know how to say it. Is it SPED or special allocations for teacher or for instructors that deal with the disadvantaged children, which is important, but I'm wondering if we're losing, it looks like 4 core teachers.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think there might be one PE teacher retiring and they're gonna repurpose that. No one, and then there was a Spanish teacher and somebody else is gonna do Spanish because that person now needs to do finance or the new graduation requirement for economics or finance or whatever it is.
Right.
My expectation, our expectation in conversation with the principals are that they are able to satisfy the graduation requirements and manage the class sizes with the FTE that they got.
So is the FTE going down?
Or not according to, I think theirs is about the same. But again, I don't know how reliable my historical one is. I did the best I could, but I can't find the data. So, and it's not as easy as counting noses because it's not, the FTE is not just teachers, it's also instructional assistants and other secretaries and counseling secretaries and other people that are involved in instruction. So.
Right, because I was just, in my, my math said that when I was looking at it, like on foreign language, you said someone's retiring. It looked like in the 23-24 year, it was 169,000 for license salary. And then it dropped to 74. So $90,000 dropped out of the budget, which is, if they're retiring, that's great.
And that
But
FTE is now going to be repurposed to do, what's the requirement, finance?
That's what I was gonna ask you. When you're talking FTE, like you've got some full-time employees that are dual, right? Like maybe they're a full-time, this is a poor example, but it's what I'm gonna use. A full-time math teacher, but they're also like maybe necessarily like an electives coach or, so how does that get counted? Does that still count as one FTE? One for math, one for this, or is it just one? Do you know what I'm getting at?
I do, and that's actually part of my problem with trying to, so I had some tag coordinator in every building and I ended up with 6 tag coordinators, which I don't have.
Okay.
So those are easy.
Okay,
They used to be really easy because you could tag and sped direction and some of those you could put them in district-wide
yeah,
and then use them in all the buildings. And then ODE came and said, if they're happening in the building, you need to put them in the building. So now I got 17% of a sped or a tag coordinator in every building.
okay. So,
But
yeah,
short answer to your question, nobody's gonna get more than 1.0.
okay. So if it's 100, let's just say it's 100 grand and it's one person getting 100 grand salary, that 100 is, on a line item, right? Or is it 50 goes to this line item and 50 goes to that line item?
Okay. Yes,
Okay,
both of those are true.
okay.
So if we have someone that, for instance, works 80-20 someplace, I would try to budget their salary 80-20.
Okay,
I wouldn't do their health insurance because I like to, that's how I judge FTE is by looking at how many health insurance packages we're buying. So they have, I've forgotten the term that's used in the payroll world, like their base place or their home room, so to speak. So that's where their insurance stays. But we do have occasion to allocate FTE, and they would be, in your example, they would be like 0.8 one place and 0.2 the other.
okay. So that might be part of the shift that maybe we're seeing in this
It could be,
budget.
it very much could be.
Okay, some
So-
spots are like, oh,
Yeah,
Right.
Corrections too.
yes, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so basically the teaching jobs are 1.0. The classified stuff, they have obviously different length calendars, but their workday is 8 hours long, but we don't pay them for their lunch at half hour. So we only pay them for 7.5 hours. So all of the classified people are 0.9375 FTE.
Yeah.
I don't make this stuff up, just the way it is.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that,
Yes.
so.
The building one, and Judy asked it earlier in an email, and there is some measure as people are perhaps moving to the district and said, what does the building, what do they spend on education they're looking at? Which school they might want to enroll their child. And that information actually is published in a different place. The next several pages are where we're looking at allocating the budget by function, which I think is probably the most telling and the most problematic in terms of trying to nail down the FTE part. So elementary instruction, again, you can see obviously a decline in FTE, but if you look at the salary numbers, you're down, what, $400,000. So I would expect the elementaries to be down, and I think there is some compression in the elementaries based on when we roll the numbers up and estimate the kindergarten. And particularly at Chenoweth, where the dual language part takes some kids out, and then I'll figure out how many teachers do I need to teach the fourth graders that aren't in DLI. Class sizes are going to inch up. This budget is pretty lean. I think people are going to be less than happy. Part of the problem, part of the thing that we're unfortunately getting rid of is some of the supports and the behavior supports. So it's not a pretty picture. It's not ideal, but it's what we're able to do with the funds available.
So this fourth column here, why did you have us look at 2020, 2021 budget?
Those are actuals. I just put them in there so that you know what.
The box.
Oh, because I didn't change it, because I wasn't smart enough to change the heading.
Oh, that's 25.
That's 24, 25. Sorry about that. It was supposed to, when I change one, it's supposed to change the other one, but it doesn't. But that obviously didn't happen. So the one in the box is the current proposed budget, 24, 25. Middle school, high school, extracurricular, that's obviously all sports and all the clubs in all the buildings. Okay. Special education is, someone said it's obviously needed, but it's a growth industry in this business. One of the few. Treatment and rehabilitation, I think that's, I was going to particularly point out what $7,800 was, but now I can't remember. Title I is Mosier as well. So all the elementary schools have Title I. I think Mosier only has an 8, but the rest of them have teachers and aides. Innovations Academy was further complicated because last year it was budgeted as a high school program, and then I started out that way in this budget, and then late in the year we got notice that they had retroactively classified it as alt ed. So it's now
What did you say?
alternative ed.
Oh,
So I put it in alt ed now, but I don't think the history's particularly relevant in alt ed.
Did you say, Randy, that that's the SLC classroom? I'm sorry.
Well, that's the Innovations Academy, the in-person part of Innovations Academy.
Okay, because that looks like it's in the high school budget.
It was before.
Is that budgeted there now?
I don't think so now.
High school SL classroom. It's
Oh, that's a special education room.
okay. That wasn't there before, so that's brand new to the high school.
No, it's not brand new. So
Which is interesting because there's no budgeted expenditures for 2003, 2020, 2023, 24, 22, 23. There's very little. And then 21, 22 is nothing.
It sounds like it was recategorized
Or-
away
or-
from the high school.
Yeah, and if you look, honestly, I don't want to speculate. I'll write that down and we can talk about that next week.
Because that was the difference in so the high school looks the same, but then when you add that in with the reductions of those teachers that I talked about, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
what's
But
going on?
We've always had, I'm not sure it's always been paid out of the general fund, and again, I don't want to guess. There's high school success gets a separate grant, but I'm not guaranteeing it's in there, but I will investigate that and answer your question.
Thanks, sir.
You bet. We also have other alternative educations. That is, what's the one over by the high school? On Kelly.
Oh, Kelly Avenue.
Kelly
Next
Avenue, and it doesn't have much FTE attached to it because we contract with Nextdoor. This is Nextdoor to provide the service there, but the cost is there, obviously.
Which one were you speaking of?
It's down at 1280, 82, and 84, alternative ed.
Got ahead of you.
That being said, 0.5 is probably not the right FTE for $176,000. So, but that's the information I got. But that being said, we could look, and I will, look down and find out, we can find out who people and what the FTE really is. The virtual academy is also an alternative ed. So all the 1280s are all ed. The 1285 is the online school. And my best estimate is there are 4 teachers, but I don't know about secretaries. Honestly, I'm embarrassed that this thing is inaccurate.
I know they've got obviously principal, an attendance, secretary. That's 3 right there.
Yes, but, and then I agree. And I think that I've left those attached to 1283
Okay,
instead of 1285.
okay. So to understand who you're wanting to move them to 1285 then, they might be just miscategorized.
I wouldn't move, would we allocate some salary? Maybe. And if we
Okay.
do, I would allocate the FTE that went with it.
And I might be getting ahead of you.
Go ahead.
We're jumping further. So like on the next page, like on the guidance services, the 2120 and the 2129, that's a pretty big jump down. What's in that guidance services? Like, give me an example.
The bulk of it is counselors in the
Okay.
schools.
Okay. And then like the psychological services,
We got one school site.
say that one more time?
We only have one school site.
Okay. And then the 4.94 on the 2160, the other student treatment, that went up quite a bit too.
That is, so 2150 speech, 2160 is physical therapy, occupational therapy, the rest of the therapies. And that is,
Like our, what's it called, athletic trainer?
no,
Special education.
Oh, okay.
services, other
special education kind of
services.
things.
Oh, okay.
Occupational therapy and physical
Gotcha.
therapy, I think that might be all. But we're unable to find one, and so the cost is to contract for that service.
And that's not contracted through the state or a grant? It's all districts
And
tackled?
again, what we're looking at here is where it's paid from is irrelevant. That's the cost, no
Mhm.
matter if it's coming from a grant or from the general fund. We'd have to dig down here to find out where it's coming
Okay.
from.
And then like improvement of instruction, the 2210, 2219. I'm just looking right now and just asking about some of the things that are a little more,
Okay.
up and down.
hang on a second, we'll get there in just a second.
Okay.
So back on the other page, 1291 is English language learners, but it also, in that grouping, also includes 1294, which is the NORCOR and the, so they're in there as well because there are other designated programs in the state's world.
I thought that went through innovations, no?
But part of the management, the part of the principal part does,
Okay,
and one secretary, I think, was actually housed in Watonka, so I left that in the Watonka. But the instruction happens down at NORCOR,
right.
and it is fully grant funded, but it makes ELL look high. Summer programming, and I don't have any FTE because, as you mentioned earlier, generally it's our people. We hired to work in the summer, but I don't attach any FTE to that in this budget, or I'd have somebody being more than 1.0. Okay. So the 2110s, so in their world, so all of the ones that are 1,000 are about instruction or services to special education. The 2,000s are support services, and support services that are in the 2,100 range are support services for students. Like, so the 21, in that range of 2110 to 2119 is the SELAs and the Therapeutic Learning Center, I think it is, at Watonka, and some of the overhead that has to do with behavior identification and management. So those are the 2110s. 2120s are guidance, counseling, and yes, that's what that is. Psych, speech, OTPT, SPED coordination. Improvement in instruction is the, it's just that. It's the director, what's she called? No, that's Shannon. Shannon
Teaching,
is,
learning, and assessment.
yes, and one other person. It's 2213. I can't remember who it is.
Instructional coach?
Yes, instructional coaches and the director of teaching, learning, and assessments, I think. Educational media is the libraries. Assessment and testing, and why I got a quarter of an FTE, I don't know, but I always have. So it's somebody that's the test coordinator. Instructional staff development is mostly paid out of Title II. And there's no FTE because the amount of money that we claim as staff development is the cost of substitutes, and substitutes don't earn an FTE. It seems a little, but in this business, that's the way it is. So the cost of the teacher being trained doesn't show up in staff development. It's the cost of the teacher's replacement that shows up in staff development. $240. 2310 is the school board. 2320 is the office of the superintendent. 2410s are the office of the principals.
Are we losing principals? Is that why it's gone down significantly?
We're unable to support the vice principals in the elementary schools.
So we're losing the vice principal position, but the principal stay.
Yeah, obviously, we've got to have a principal.
Yeah.
Middle school and high school will still have their, yes, they still have what they had, but the elementary vice principals have been,
So
well,
let me ask this. So if we're losing vice principals, that workload is going to be put on somebody somewhere. So does that mean, water runs downhill? So are we allocating funds for existing employees that might bear the brunt of more duties to fill that vice principal role that it's gonna be divvied up. We can't, it's just simple math. It's gonna be divvied up. Somebody's gonna have a bigger workload. So are we allocating part of that salary that now, I guess it looks like we're saving money, right?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Well, I mean, just on a number scale, it's decreased, so are we going to play around with maybe, well, that's, I guess, your guys' thing, but
Well,
that's my question.
yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna disagree with that, and I think I said that earlier, it's gonna be not good.
Right.
The loss of, go ahead. Anthony?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry. The loss of the ESSER dollars, to keep those current staffing levels would have taken like $1.8 million. And we have reduced overall, this budget has $1.5 million less in salaries and benefits.
Okay, so if we're comparing the 21, which is kind of mid-COVID, 20 with the FTE, the 21.15, it looked like by 2024, 23's budget, we only went up 2 people. So I guess what I'm saying is because I can't see pre-2021 and 22. And I don't, well, relevant or not, I'm gonna ask, what did we do before the pre-COVID money, the pre-ESSER money? I mean, are we that far off in our budget and our estimates that we really have to cut that?
Well, are you asking
And
about
I'm
the
tossing that
staffing
at-
or the dollars?
Well, both, the staffing and the dollars, I mean, because if you have less staffing, you're gonna have less out. But pre the 21, 22, for the, like say the office of the principal, it's at 21.5 FTE. I apologize, and you probably don't even know that right now either. Like, what were those employment numbers of the vice principal, I guess?
And I left in 1920,
Okay,
and so
1920?
2020.
school year
Okay,
1920.
2000, okay, gotcha, I was like, okay.
I mean, I'm old, but I'm not that
Yeah,
old.
I was like, I think we're all like, maybe we're only.
I meant the school year 1920.
Yes, got it, okay. So are we that far off from 1920 versus,
Actually, the staffing that we're proposing in this budget is the same as it was in 1920.
so we were at the 17.32 with all of that. We just hired, and now we've got it, okay, all right.
Well, the other variable in all that is enrollment decline too. So when you look at that school year as opposed to this, we're like 150 less. So that,
I guess I assumed we had vice principals this whole time.
More than that.
I've put 4 kids through this district, wasn't aware that we didn't have.
We never had them except
Vice principals.
when we got to middle school. Historically, at least when I was here, from 07, not 1907.
Was it some of the?
School year 07, 08.
Wasn't some of it partly job titles were different as well?
You know, I don't know the answer to that because we didn't have any when I was here before. So we didn't have deans of students and we might have had one, but anyway.
That's classification as well.
Yeah. So,
Say, Randy.
yes, sir.
So, along that same thread, if you're saying that we're proposing our staffing at the same level as the year that you left for the 1920 year, if we're going back to the same staffing there, so is that across the board? How much staffing? So I look at staffing in 3 different ways. We have the special education, which there's more of, and special accommodation teachers that we have. Like the first one that comes to mind is like, Paula Erickson at the high school up there and running her class up there, which is awesome. Or special, whatever the special categories are, right? And then we have our frontline teaching staff, and then we have administration. Are we moving everybody back to that level? if we're cutting at the instructional staff, are we also making cuts to admin? I couldn't tell.
I don't think I can categorically answer it. I think what we did then and continue to do now, for lack of a better term, classroom teachers,
Yes.
we're always looking at rolling up this year's, how many teachers do I need to teach third grade and fourth grade and fifth grade?
Yeah.
And that has fallen off some. As you correctly identified, special education, our challenge here and most districts is the state pays us for 11% of the population to be special education, and ours is closer to 16%. So, but that doesn't mitigate that you have to provide the services. So special education, like you said, is a growth industry.
Right.
Is there
when
a
I-
conscious effort to return to 2021's staffing levels? No.
Right.
We looked at every position, and honestly, we were using, by and large, attrition, almost exclusively attrition, so that it's not like somebody, this contraction wasn't the loss of somebody's job, that they were retiring or moving away anyway. So we're just choosing not to fill the job.
Understandable. I guess my other question is, because I'm going to get it as we go out of here, and a lot of us are going to get it. If we have a tight budget, which we do, which we've identified that 1.5, whatever it is, are we making these cuts across the board, or is it our frontline staff? So quite honestly, is admin shrinking?
Well, I think that's where we are. That was the conversation we were just having about the office of the principal. So the short answer is yes. Admin is.
Well, okay, so, but administrations and vice principals are kind of quasi principals. Vice principals are in the schools. Is there administration that's being cut that's not student facing every day?
I don't believe so. I mean, if you're talking about HR, they're the same size, fiscal office is the same size, improvement of instruction, same size, office of the superintendent, same size. So I think the short answer is no.
That's going to be a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
Because when we're in hard times, I would think our student-facing faculty should have first priority to stay the strongest to the public as possible. And I think we would all agree. I know we don't like cutting jobs, but we want to keep our education strong because that's what we're in the business of. And I know support staff is support staff, but everybody should be rolling up their sleeves.
I'm not disagreeing. I think that the challenge with what you're asking is almost all of those, what you're calling administrative positions, have only one person, so you would have to not do the work, period.
Okay. Because I did notice, like, even in the athletic budget, it looks like there's no secretary going forward. Is that true?
Yeah, I think they have a half a secretary.
Right now in the proposed budget, that's 0.
I think she left, right? We're just not filling it.
I don't know that conversation. I just know it was on the paper.
But that's not, I mean, that's not necessarily sustainable either.
Right.
Somebody's
I'm
gonna
just
have to
saying
do
that
that.
maybe
I
that's why
think,
it's not on the paper.
yeah.
Right.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, very welcome.
I'm gonna mute my phone for a minute. I gotta go watch an 800 race. I'll be right back.
What?
I think you said you have to 1-800 number is calling.
Oh, I
No,
thought
I
you
thought
said
he said
800
it.
race.
We must be out of track.
Yeah.
Oh.
The state track, because I
The
thought you
state
said
track.
800 race.
Oh,
got it.
oh. Okay, I'm gonna step on down through these. So fiscal services is my department. Operation and maintenance of plant, they actually, I think they're growing some. For the custodians in the buildings, I don't think they changed much, but grounds and building maintenance, perhaps. Student transportation's about the same, almost exactly the same. Go ahead.
Actually, the question specifically on that, that is quite a bit different, especially if you look historically on student transportation. It's almost it actually has went about times and a half since 2021, 2022. Because before the total budget was 2 million, just over 2 million, and this year it's just over 3 million. So that's a fairly substantial increase of total budgeted
Does
numbers
this
there.
roll up for Sherman?
Yeah, that also now includes the contract. We
Okay,
do
so that's
busing
part
for
of-
Sherman County.
Okay, so that's part of that
So
public
there's about
busing.
$900,000
Okay.
of that is part of that.
So that was part of my
Yes.
question, because that's actually gonna be making money, because even though that money is going out, we're paying other schools and districts, so that's actually funding itself. That's what I thought, I
Yes.
just wanted to cover that, because that was a large increase, but that explains large increase if we've been expanding that.
The thing that troubles me is if we're doing Sherman County, how come we don't have more drivers? It's about the same FTE, and I don't know that we lost any routes, so again, but that's the numbers I just got.
Maybe they're just part-time.
Or maybe they drive,
They have their own drivers.
They have their own drivers.
We
but
supply
their
them.
drivers work for us.
Oh,
Yeah, they do. So,
no, they're volunteers.
all right, I'll find out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it could be a combination of part-time, maybe we're contracting them, and that's why they're
Well,
not
they
showing
are,
up
and
as
they're
FTE.
frankly the most difficult FTE to calculate, because they work split shifts. You know, they pick the kids up in the morning and then they come back in the afternoon and take them home.
Mhm.
And so, at the end of, at least twice a year, I used to do it at the end of every trimester. We actually compared how many hours they worked to change their FTE, because it makes a difference in how they accrue sick leave and vacation pay and those sort of things. So I'd change their FTE 2 or 3 times a year to make sure that they were getting, the accruals were right.
Got a few other.
Information services, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I have a few other questions, but I'm waiting until we get to those items.
Okay,
so.
information services is the communications director. Human resources is the director and 2 secretaries. Nutrition services, obviously you know what that is, that's the lunchrooms. The facilities acquisition, that's, there were some things budgeted last year that didn't happen. And what I'm saying is that budget was a little bit artificially high. This budget includes $2 million some to finish the seismic upgrade at Chenoweth. So when you look at, I said salaries and benefits went down $1.5 million, and the budget went down like $1 million from one year to the other. The difference is because capital outlay went up and salaries went down. Debt service, in the year we're in right now, we're applying for a tax anticipation note, and so I have included the repayment in debt service for next year.
And what's that for in particular?
It's an advance on next year's property tax. You borrow money in the public market and pay it back in December. It's a 6-month note, I guess. Anyway, they loan you money in June and you pay it back in December.
It sounds like a budgeting trick to help the financial
Well,
years balance out.
it's like, yeah, it's more like cash flow, not budgeting. And we used to do it routinely, but this is the first year we're resurrecting it. Good questions, everyone, and I'm gonna try to take notes and get answers to your questions.
I
Go
just
ahead.
had one other general question about the budget,
Certainly.
because I'm sure it's kind of an elephant in the room, if many people saw Krista's email from earlier today. But I just wanted to be assured or get the answers on, are we actually putting cuts to teachers' pay as part of this budget? Or is it more we're just losing teachers and rearranging codes, and so it looks like we're paying teachers less, but it's really just because of allocation and retirements, as you guys have expressed?
So I don't want to confuse the issue. Well, let me think about that for a second. The year we're in right now, the salaries include a 6% bonus, if you will, that was added in '22, and then we hold it out to pay their PERS, their retirement.
Okay.
This budget is saying, we're just not going to add it to your salary, we'll just pay the PERS for you. So it's the same raw salary. It's just a matter of who's paying the IAP contribution or the PERS contribution. So if you were to look a little deeper, and you added the PERS pickup to the salaries, it would be the same as the salaries of this year.
So basically, instead of us giving them the money and saying, you're responsible for paying this, we're saying, we're just gonna pay this for you and hold on to the money, essentially?
Yeah, the short answer, yes. The big distinction is, if we can pay the PERS on your behalf and not add it to your salary, then I don't have to pay the payroll taxes on the PERS that I added to your salary. And that is about just the PERS the PERS bonus, if you will, is about $425,000. So, so it's a way to save a few jobs. And the teachers' spendable money is still the same or goes up a little bit by not paying Social Security tax on the extra 6%. And we preserve some jobs and they still get the 6% contributed.
Yeah, okay.
That all being said, that's our proposal that we're just about ready to start bargaining. So if we don't prevail, we'll have to take it back and put it back in the salary and do it the other way. And then frankly, we'll have to make some personnel adjustments.
Minus our vice principals as well, well,
Yeah.
4 or 5-ish vice principals.
3.
Okay.
Yeah.
3.
I'm guessing the other FTEs that dropped in the vice principal's office was probably due to people going to part-time or retirements as well,
I think
because it dropped by 5, but you only mentioned 3.
And there was a dean of students in one of the buildings that is gone. And I frankly don't remember the other one.
Well, actually, it dropped by 6. Not quite a full 6. It went from 23.15 to 17.3. So that's just short of 6. It's like 5.85.
4, I think it's 4 easily.
Is it over 6?
Oh, no.
No. It's just under 6, yeah.
All right,
Yeah, 83, yeah.
I'll find out.
Is JT gonna stay, isn't he?
Mutual trust.
Yeah, I'm guessing that may have been one of those.
But see, some of their
FTE
support staff may have gone too.
That's true, yeah, so that is moving to what you commented on, that's gonna add to more.
It is, without question. It's the best I can do with the money that I think we're gonna get.
It's hard to budget for money we don't have. We're not gonna know until the state comes up with their budget and what we're allocated.
Well, that's the case every year.
I know, and then they go back and then they change it again or add other things on top of it
It's,
after the budget's been settled. When they added all that extra work for the special ed teachers and the director.
And again, as my opening comments were, it's their estimates, they're my best estimates right now.
So that's the contingency part, the 6110?
The contingency is just that,
Okay,
just that. The danger is if you budget, side budget is the same beginning and ending fund balance, like we were gonna break even and hopefully still had 300 if something blew up. The danger of budgeting as ending fund balance is that you can never repurpose it. You can't do a supplemental budget to repurpose ending fund balance. So to leave a little bit of flexibility for unforeseen things, the challenge is always that appropriations for spending aren't necessary. It's also predicated on all of the revenue coming in. So just because you have unspent budget doesn't mean that we have unspent dollars.
right, it might not have been the revenue that came in.
Yes,
as planned.
so, and then, you know, if we get an extra $1 in property tax, we get $1 less from the state school fund. So,
You might have talked, just two more things really quick. Remind me what the facilities acquisition is again, the 4,000?
the 4 million.
Yeah, the number, sorry.
Yes,
4,000.
so that's to complete, we're budgeting to complete a $2 million seismic renovation on the Chenoweth Gymnasium, and I think maybe that whole, the cafeteria building.
Yeah, that.
That whole standalone building.
That was grant money, right, correct?
Yes, with
Okay.
seismic grant.
Okay. And why did the debt service, I'm sorry if you went over this, remind me.
Debt service,
why is
well,
that so
they
much?
continue to rise.
Okay.
Almost all of the scheduled bond repayments, we have two. Well, we only have one bond. In 2003 or 4, the district sold bonds and prepaid part of their PERS unfunded actuarial liability obligation. And so that, I think even with 2020 hindsight, it was probably a good idea. So that, when you have prepaid that part, that keeps the district's annual PERS contribution rate smaller.
Okay.
But to repay those bonds, when the state school fund gives us the warrant monthly to, here's your state school fund, they intercept like $200,000 and send it to the people that are gonna pay those bonds. And those bonds are, like all bonds, most bonds, are structured so that as time goes by, the payments keep going up
Right.
until they get exhausted. I think I think we're done in 2030 or something like that.
So
And the
that-
other one is a full faith and credit obligation, same thing, the
Okay.
payments go up every year.
So that's because, correct me, that's because of payments, but not because we borrowed or did another bond. Is there a new bond that's worked into that?
No, there's new
Okay.
borrowing, but not
Okay.
bonded borrowing.
Okay.
And that was what you explained earlier.
The tax
on,
anticipation note
is
is
where we're essentially taking a loan to help cover
this year's expenses.
Yeah.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul with different.
But you
things.
can't, you can't borrow your way to prosperity either.
Amen to that, amen to that.
I have a question about an account district-wide. I don't know if you're gonna dig into the.
Go ahead.
The district-wide occupational physical therapy, what happened there? Was that a legislative required addition? Did we get a special grant? Because if you look at the roll-up for that account, it goes from 72,000 to 355,000 proposed. And then in my medical mind begs the question, like, is this billable? And not knowing what grant it comes from.
What did you say, Judy? That
Some of it is,
Billable, like, can we bill Medicaid?
Okay, I thought you said build a bond, and I was like, what? Billable, okay, billable.
Unless it's like coming from a grant or it's required.
What page are you on, Judy?
157, 158, it's the district-wide occupational physical therapy,
In the general, right?
yeah, district-wide general fund expenditure.
hire one. Which would provide OT. I'll find out. Report to you in a week.
I have a generic question. Can you tell me what the difference between licensed salaries and classified salaries are?
Yes, licensed are teachers
Teachers.
and classified are everyone else, support staff, custodian, bus drivers.
Okay. Okay.
May I ask a question? So there's 13 positions posted right now. Are those gonna be filled?
I have no idea. My assumption is, yes, we wouldn't have posted them if they weren't going to be filled.
And those salaries, referring to what you said, are already maybe budgeted in here?
Yeah, I think so. It's not like we're gonna skip fourth grade, so if a fourth grade teacher retires, we would have posted it higher. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just been accounted for on both
Yes.
ends. Okay.
So like, I know the 8 certified staff have resigned or going to retire. So are those positions gonna be filled?
Again, they may or may not be part of the ones that are already posted, but my analysis was to how many teachers do we need based on the enrollment in various classrooms. So if it's just somebody that is retiring, my assumption is they will be filled, yes.
That's another question.
Yeah, certainly.
Just looking at the difference between girls' high school basketball and boys' high school basketball, I was worried about the discrepancy of budgeting into Title IX,
In the history or the budget?
the budget.
Say that one more time, please.
So on page 101 and 102, comparing basketball boys and basketball girls, the 2024-25 proposed budget for boys is 35,000 plus. For girls, it's 16,000, almost
Yeah.
17,000.
Okay, yeah.
Is it the amount of teams?
I don't know, that's the question,
I
is like, is it by
Is there
students?
three
Is it-
boy team, three male teams and two girl teams
No.
last
For
year?
three, for
Were there three?
basketball? Yeah, well, unless, did we do away with cross team? Because it's
I
varsity
can't remember what we had this
JV,
year.
varsity JV, well, it depends on all who goes out, right? So
Right.
you've got varsity JV and then usually like the incoming freshman
So
team.
it's based on the number of coaches, but I sort of, what's budgeted for the girls' basketball looks only like only one coach, and the one coach can't do varsity and JV both
Got more
girls'
girls.
basketball.
More for golf, more for football.
And the minor discrepancy in coaches' salaries are really based on how long the person has been in the role. But it does appear that we might be a coach short.
We have a lot of turnover on our coaching staff historically. I mean, I can't think of anybody longevity that's, except for maybe golf. That's been here maybe for a while.
And frankly,
top
we
of my
only,
head.
the differences aren't that great. We only pay 3 steps. You know, beginning coach, middle coach.
Yep.
So in 3 years, you're at the top of the salary scale for coaches.
Yeah, usually got a varsity JV and then like some sort of an assistant.
Yeah. Good catch, Judy. I'll find out.
Can I ask when we didn't have OT, where was that salary?
Pardon me?
When we didn't have an OT, where was that salary?
When we didn't have an OT, like right now, I think we're contracted for OT services. So it would be in like 389 object instead of a salary.
Have we always had that service?
Yes. Yeah, we always have to provide OT. And I don't know what year that, we had one person on staff that did. I don't remember what year she might have retired, but the other one, we either contract, try to get somebody from the hospital or a licensed OT did. But it's not the greatest situation and it's kind of expensive. But there aren't that many people that apparently graduated that are looking to work in the school, so.
But is that a function of the need, meaning the students that are enrolled here that need those services?
Yeah, so it's dependent on how many have OT on their IEPs, certainly. And so if you hire a teacher and you don't have much OT, costs the same. But as the demand goes, if the demand goes up, you have to contract for more services. So, yeah, I think that's a piece of it.
What's an SLC classroom?
Structured Learning Center,
Okay,
Special education.
special ed.
okay, so that maybe the shift like on page 114, that we spent nothing, and then all of a sudden we're spending 94,000. Maybe that's a classification issue. And the same with the one below it. Basically, it's line item 111 and 112. Because those are some pretty big jumps there.
They're staff intensive programs. And we've had it for a number of years.
Oh,
So my only
Okay,
answer to you would be I'd have to find what fund paid for it before.
okay.
My sense is if we looked in 210 IDEA is a federal grant specific for special education. My guess is that's where it is, the history is there.
Okay, just a classification issue most likely
Yeah.
then?
So, I mean, the only thing you can spend IDEA funds on are special education services, and I'll find it while we're talking. So it might have been historically paid there, and now when that grant pushed over the limit of IDEA grant,
Okay,
and it has to come back to the general fund.
so on that page 114, line item 111, for the SLC classroom, it's 94,000, and then you flip the page, and it's the same categorization, well, it's the same object, not account number, right?
Yes.
Well, it actually is the same account number. Then there's another license salary that was never there before, and now it's there at 56,000-ish.
I think that's what Anthony was asking about.
Okay, so those
And
are
that's the
just,
one I'm gonna investigate, unless I can find it right now. 'Cause I think the history's probably gonna be an IDEA.
Well, you're
And I
looking,
apologize, because I've forgotten most of these numbers.
while you're looking at that, Carolyn, do you mind if I ask you a quick question that you might know more than him? And this is something that we might not be able to do anything about, but the liability insurance we have on the board, it looks like it went up substantially again, from, I'm on page 160 of the same itemized,
That's the one that she mentioned in her message, it went up 7, that's the liability, that's
Yeah.
fire, that's all insurance except vehicles for the whole district.
Yeah, I was just getting to, are there other ways that we can mitigate that insurance to drop it through services like MFA, more secure things that will drop the liability of the school district by implementing more secure IT services?
Our coverage requires it, so like, as an example, like you've got to do additional training now as board members. So we do similar to what the staff do online
Okay.
portal. They've added a whole suite of things related to things like MFA and the whole cybersecurity realm. And that, what Pace, our insurance provider did, is that they required it, they just didn't have to do this.
And they also jacked up the rates after we were more secure?
We get a savings, but yeah, I mean, they went up, and they didn't go up as much, I guess, as they could, if they weren't in compliance with.
So we did
trainings
already
added.
save money there by getting compliant in that.
We're doing what we can to capture whatever savings are available,
Okay.
on the insurance side.
That's the state as a whole, because as a business owner, I think everybody's insurance, it doesn't matter, car insurance, whatever, everybody's got jacked up.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that we did that checkbox.
Yeah.
And we do,
Perfect.
we're part of we get it through the Oregon School Boards Association through PACE. And we've, raised our deductible to $25,000.
You have to do it through them? Is that a state law that you have to
There
have
are-
insurance through them?
There was one other group that I did it once, but almost all the districts go through PACE. There was one called USERPA, and I can't remember what the acronym meant, but they were comparable, and I think the inflation in insurance, if you will, is just what you described. Insurance everywhere is going, every kind of insurance is going up.
But since it's been a while, I mean, it might be something that we could look into again and, run the numbers on again. Just,
Sure.
Just to see.
So,
An alternate
Yeah, yeah,
provider potentially.
yeah.
I haven't found all the detail, but I think what you're talking about, that SLC classroom with no history, is on page 182. That was paid out of IDEA in the past.
Which one?
Right in the middle of the page is an elementary SLC classroom, and then on page 181, right in the middle of the page, 1 year part of it was up there.
That's in the 200 to 600 funds.
Yeah, the 210s.
Yeah.
And there's some budgeted there this year as well. So it's a labor-intensive, expensive program.
Here's some extra work that I'm gonna ask anyways. Can you, because as you said at the start of the meeting, it is a matter of perception and, breaking this down and, what it makes sense to you, so I can get that, because bookkeeping does change. Is there a way that you can, like this, maybe not print it off again, but maybe run the report and highlight it? This 000 a lot was down here in money, normal. Does that make sense? Like, rather than, I guess what I'm saying is, I think that would be really good for the public too. So if we if we had 3 years at $0 and then like that, we went up to 94,000 to say, hey, we maybe always spent that, but it was down here and it was allocated differently, and this is the way we're interpreting it now going forward.
Well,
But it's
I
some
guess
extra
short
footwork.
answer is I
Yeah.
could probably do that.
Mhm.
And part of my answer also is that's what I'm trying to do by grouping all the funds together and do it by function or location, so
Sure.
that as somebody's already pointed out, the history, and then it takes a jump, and we want to know why it took a jump. So I think based on that, the things that were included in that function, 2113, regardless of what fund it was paid for, I think the 2113s ought to be comparable historically in last year's budget and next year's budget. And maybe I'm not exactly answering your question.
I'm more of an itemized girl. Like, you can tell me the 2013s are about the same, but it's like, okay, well, I want to know where you moved 100 and where the thousands were moved and where the tens of thousands were moved within that 213 department. We're just pulling a number out of our, and then public that's watching, I'm just stating.
Yeah, and I guess I was trying, when I grouped it by function, my goal was to show that we were, what the services were that we were providing, regardless of whether the federal government, state government, or we paid for it. And the comparability of the cost of those programs. To show that, frankly, there's no easy way to do it because I can't see the history. I mean, I'm only gonna, if I go back and look in 22-3 or whatever, it's gonna show, it won't show me a report if nothing was spent in the general fund, it will only show me where money was spent.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a little more problematic to satisfy your question.
Well, I mean, if it's showing where the money was spent, let's just say last month, then we're gonna, I get that, the way you work it and your helpers work it might be a little different, but showing that, hey, it was spent here last month, but we're putting that here now, moving forward with you here. I'm gonna just be very honest, I think what happens is we have a very, just figure out my words here for a minute. We have a very disappointed community right now, and we have a very, I hate to use the word volatile, but I'm going to right now, relationship between the school board and the community, and there's a lot of what us as community members feel like there's transparency issues, and I think, would that be a pain in the butt for you? Probably. It's just gonna be like, okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying,
but I guess-
the effort isn't the problem, I'm
Well-
just trying to figure out how to make it a meaningful report.
Well, I
I
honestly,
don't think she's talking.
it would be this highlighted with a little memo, like, hey,
Markups.
this is here now, or this was here, it is here now because this is the way you and your group do it. Like, like we have issues, with the community, with the teachers, and everybody's worried about cuts and this and that. And so when you look at money for these reports, and I get that maybe the person before you might not have allocated it there, but when we go from zeros to a lot, boy, does that fuel a lot of bad energy in the community. So I think we need to be diligent and diffuse those issues the best we can. I get your point of view, like putting, all the object numbers of like the 213s or the 400s or the 20, that you're grouping those together. But I know that there's a lot of Jennifers out there that wanna know the line items of the group.
And I think,
That was a long way to get there.
honestly, I think I understand your question, but is it as simple as making some copies of the relevant pages here and just saying, here's where we paid for it 2 years ago and here's where we're paying for it now?
Yeah.
I think so.
And it's not, and this is just me, this, y'all are gonna have to probably, I'm not talking about hundreds. Like, I don't need you to tell me this $10 went from Sally Jesse over to Susie Joe. I get that, but I wanna, the things, the items, that Judy brought up, that I brought up, that everybody's brought up, that are so glaring, those definitely need all these zeros are now a lot because we're pulling from a different category and I'm putting them there.
Okay, I hear you. And so the relevant answer is gonna be, well, here's where the history was, and it was a lot, now it's zero. And here's where it is now.
Right, the zeros to a lot, the alternate, yes.
See, part of that, the work that they're performing is the same, so it's gonna be in the same function. So we're really talking only about the difference in funds. The fund that's paying for it, it's either the general fund,
Sure.
ESSER fund, some other federal fund. So I think that is identifiable and doable.
But that's what the community wants, that's what the taxpayers, that's what the parents, that's what the teachers want.
Yeah, really to get to your point, because I completely understand where you're coming from, and it would be helpful to have just a footnote that says on any major, like big changes to the budget, either a large increase or a large decrease of a number, or it was moved from here to here, moved away from here to here, just a line item that says, hey, this was moved, reallocated here to this section. You don't even have to get super deep, but say this was moved to this section and accounted for here instead of here, or this was moved to here from here to account for this. And so that way it's really clear and clean when people who aren't as educated on the budgets and line items, they can say, oh, this was moved to here, and then they can quickly reference and see and compare and make sense.
And we didn't make a lot of these, so I mean, the simple way would be to, where there's, in your example, bunch of zeros in that this year there's cost, would be to just to write what page number
Yep.
where the zeros are.
And you can.
But that's not
yeah.
gonna, not everyone's gonna see that other than
Yep.
this group, and frankly, I only have to satisfy this group to get the budget approved.
But this group is also out in the, I mean, all of us are out in the community and we need to be able to explain what our district is doing, what our tax dollars are doing, and frankly, what you're doing because we hired you, right? So,
And it
I'm
is,
not doing it for nothing.
right.
it is online, publicly available as well. So just saying that we're gonna be the only ones that might dig into this and dig into the
No, I'm not
numbers.
saying that, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, I'm talking,
Yeah,
if
no.
I was just gonna write the page number,
Sure.
only this group would see that unless they shared it with other people.
Well, I think we could put it out
I
as an
downloaded it
alternative.
online, so it's,
Yeah.
it's there and available for anyone who knows how to look for it.
You know, and I'm just gonna be fair, so it's, you know, for whoever's listening and for us here, you can spoon feed people as much as you want, and you can give them what they're asking for, but at some point, the community needs to take accountability. If they're asking questions and you give them an answer, we don't need to completely, we just need to put it out there to help them make sense of it, and then what they do with that information, whether they're satisfied or wanna, you know, stir the pot, I don't know. That's irrelevant really, but I think we need to do our best at being as transparent as we can.
I'm agree.
Let me see what and again, there's gonna be some commonality in a lot of them because there's the ESSER dollars going away. All those pandemic sort of dollars supported things. So during that period of time, there's gonna be lots of places in here where it was zeros. Then the ESSERs go away and now I got a cost.
Yep.
So I don't think what you're asking is that monumental, that we can't at least get some cross-referencing so you can say, well, if you just look on this page.
That'd be great,
Yeah.
that'd be really great.
And maybe even funding notes when the funding appears or disappears. And that way you're showing, oh, this dropped significantly because it was funded by this grant before, but now it's no longer. One other note, I don't know, this might be a bigger lift, but maybe on some of the things where it is funded through other sources and it's a big chunk of money, just like put a note like, hey, this is fully funded by this grant or partially funded, or just a note showing that a lot of this money isn't coming out of our tax dollars, it's coming from a grant or somewhere else.
Well, and frankly, that one's much easier to answer because when you get past the tab that says general fund, everything else is paid for by somebody else. So the federal grants, state grants, local grants, the student investment account, all the rest of those. So we're only talking about the first group that's got any tax dollars in it.
The 100 group, the
Yeah,
general?
The
Okay.
general fund is the only one. The rest of them are self-balancing and paid from another source.
Okay, yeah. And maybe even just putting that clearly on the website before people download, like, hey, these funds, just so you know, this is all not by your tax dollars, but federal, state, you know.
It is, okay. I've said this a million times, I'm gonna say it again. All tax dollars, federal, state, it's tax money, all of us pay into it. Yeah,
That's where grants come from.
Yeah, it is, right, yeah, it ain't no grant, you're paying for it, it's the tax dollars, and I think that's something that we need to be very respectful of and we need to acknowledge, because it's not play money, it's not free money, it's our money.
Anyone?
Just one more question. So do you know, or when will you know that the reduction in FTE, the number of people that will be lost to attrition and the number of people that will be ripped?
Well, we're not anticipating a RIF. So,
Reduction in
Okay.
I think I could probably clearly report that to you at the next meeting. Attrition, yeah. Yeah, we could do that.
Circling back on the conversation that Jen had brought up, I mean, I think we should set a dollar limit for what variances we want them to identify, so what is that number? So that
Anything that
50 grand, 100 grand?
Anything that has zeros, I wanna know something, anything that has been reduced by,
So 50, whatever.
I don't know, there's some that are real close to 50-ish thousand. I think the glaring, gosh, I don't know, so, cause what's glaring to me is gonna be maybe
Well,
glaring
let me
different
take
to
a
you.
swing at it,
We're trying to
because
narrow it,
the,
so,
the,
like,
Yeah, I get
if
it,
it's
finding the
$1,000,
ones
like,
that are all zeros and this year got cost, those are gonna be,
Definitely
actually,
not.
they're gonna be, in my thinking, is they're gonna be grouped together. That they were paid with ESSER dollars. ESSER one paid the first year of zeros, ESSER two paid the second year of zeros, and now there's no ESSER four, so now it's in the general fund. I think those are gonna be reasonably easy to identify. And I'm sure there are far fewer of the ones that have cost, and now no cost.
yeah, but also there's some big jump downs too. I mean, is there anything,
I have an
anybody
idea
there that,
on a number.
sure,
If it's over $50,000 and
plus or
it
minus?
plus or minus 20%. Because if something increased by 20%, a larger amount, because that's
I
the
just
only
think
other
plus or minus 50 is called
plus or
good,
minus 50.
no percentage.
What if you have the point where like how our debt services over doubled, you know, that would be flagged along with hiring someone else.
I think our
Yeah.
debt services probably should need to be entered too,
Yeah.
right? Especially
that'd
that,
be a
because
var- that'd be a
everybody wants to
variance
know
greater
about
than
that.
50.
Yeah, plus or, if it's
That's what I'm
under
saying,
50,
what the
if it's
variance-
under 50K, whatever, might have been a line item. If it's over 50K, we probably need to answer for that, right? Is that what we're getting at?
What I'm
I
thinking
think we
is
should
the
define it just so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, because there's variances in every line item, so, you know, what are we really trying to glean? And I agree that, you know, it's tough when, you know, so many pages of this, there's no
Yeah.
context when you're just a community member. You don't need the opportunity to sit here and ask a lot of the questions, you can send in your questions, but this conversation to me is just all about context, right? Is that if I'm looking at this document and I see to what's been said, right, bunch of zeros and all of a sudden I've got a huge, you know, increase, and I've got a salary now, what is that? So, you know, we should be able to identify that, hey, this is a person that's existed, he had previously paid via different funding or whatever, right? Just a quick little, how did this arrive at what it is?
But I'm not disagreeing, I'm just trying to clarify my workload.
I understand.
If the delta is 50, are we talking about 50 in salary, or are we talking about 50 in the budget?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to define too.
Yeah, well, I can only answer for myself. To me, it would be 50K, period, no matter what. Salary, budget, whatever, that's me personally. So I can't really help you, because that's, from that standpoint, if we're gonna put a number on it, it's only gonna be my personal number that I think, maybe not reflective of the community, it's personal.
My only concern with the number that low is you're gonna end up with a sheet that's just highlighted.
I don't know, there's a lot of them, I don't know, there's some that are really glaring, but I don't know if it's really that big of a sheet, honestly.
Yeah, cause I don't know if it's
Um,
better to target it by the delta by a solid number or percentage of number, because different items and,
I will let you make that decision, Chair.
well, why don't
How's that?
I, let's see, our next meeting is when? Tuesday. Next Tuesday?
Might have been a dime, but I'm gonna pass it.
Hey, that's all right. Numbers are where I excel,
Yeah,
and
so
I
that's-
do a lot of statistics and polling when I'm like downloading raw data
Yeah,
from
that's why I'm passing it
servers
to
and
you. Go, Chair, go.
going through. So let me see what I can find, like financially, what good things, there might be some other financial gurus who've already figured out this delta, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
I think you're right on. I think going line by line and trying to find changes of 50 is gonna get a pretty lengthy list. By the same token, 50 is probably not the right number if you look at 1111, elementary instruction in a building that's general and you don't, not by subject, you know, it's not by math and science and all that. So Chenoweth goes down 100, but, and we're gonna explain where the, you know, where the attrition was, but it wouldn't be it wouldn't be unusual to have a pretty large dollar delta in there, but not, so the your percentage is probably more accurate. I think it's gonna be, the one that you first suggested, I think, would be easier and perhaps more meaningful is how come we're suddenly spending in this category and we never spent there before? Or the reverse of that, how come we always had this and now we don't? I think those are easily, not easily, but more easily answered.
Time efficient answered is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
The other ones that, you know, you're gonna find a delta of more than 50 probably in the cost of insurance and certainly in debt service. But other than saying the cost of insurance went up, I don't know what other explanation you're gonna have. But the lack of uniformity, if you will, from the way things are presented, where there are a bunch of zeros and now we got a cost, or we've always had a cost, now we don't. And to tie that to a different page in the budget and say that's because it's over here, probably has more value in terms of trying to answer someone's question of why we got, without a threshold, if you will.
Yeah, so I'll work on getting a threshold that will be acceptable and we can talk about it or vote on it in the next meeting. And then just on your note and comment, anything that you can include on these comments that say, hey, but we actually mitigated or made this cost decrease, like for instance, I asked about the insurance and cybersecurity law. They did that and lowered the insurance, it would have been higher. Having that in a note on the budget is gonna make so many people happy who see that note. So just those little things that you can communicate extra to show, oh, we're taking these extra steps. Because otherwise it's just, oh, this increased by 70-some% and people are upset, you know?
Yeah.
So just that, going back to that clarity and transparency, really what we need. Any other questions on the budget? I know we've been grilling our good accountant here for so long. Or any public questions? Did anyone sign? There's a public forum for some questions. I don't know where that is or if anyone's filled that out. But I think we're definitely to that section of the meeting now. Nope, nothing? Any last questions? Going once, going twice?
I'll ask one. So I know on May 15th, there's gonna be the prior year adjustment by ODE. And usually that results in a loss between like 100,000 to $1 million. Do you have a projection what that's going to be?
Do I have a hard number? I looked at it not long ago. My estimate is that it's going to be in the 100-ish range. And I don't, it's complicated. But I'm not expecting a big May adjustment, a huge May adjustment, like more than $500,000.
So you're thinking under
I
half or more
I think
towards
it's
100?
more reasonable. I think it's, I mean, you're never, ever gonna get it right, ever. Again, because, yes, it's 2 years after we estimated what the local revenues were gonna be, that you finally find out through that reconciliation process. But when I looked at the data that I had, I was seeing that it was not an alarming adjustment, to answer your question. I could could be wrong, I've been wrong lots of times. We used to purposely do it. You would underestimate your local revenue, local property tax, then you got the property tax to spend, and you didn't have to give it back for 2 years, so it wasn't that big a deal. And it was about the same every year, but I quit playing that game. It's frankly, it hurts everybody, and it hurts all the other school districts in the state as well.
With that, are there any other committee questions that we have?
Thank you, I do appreciate your questions. And I'm not 100% sure I'm going to answer them all, but I'll do my best.
We'll keep asking if you know, it's all right.
We'll get there.
All right, well, with that, I think that we can call this meeting to recess unless there's any other questions that you guys have. All right. You can all go home.
Chair.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, you didn't even get the hammer either.
Yeah, I know. You held the hammer the whole time you holding on to that.
I'll make sure you get it next time.
Oh, just a forewarning, if we don't have a backup for next week, I am on a 24-hour pager duty, but I do have people that will get the calls before.
But we got a vice chair.
Yeah, we do, okay, as long as we have a vice chair,
Oh, thank you so much.
You notice what happened when you're on mute?
Oh, I gave the thumbs up.
All right, perfect. I appreciate you being my backup, Anthony.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, cool. Well, everyone have a great rest of your evening, and thanks again so much for all that.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your chairmanship.
Thank you. I'm sure that's what everyone wanted to be when they came to this.
They do, a lot of people.
Long story short,
When I grow up, I wanted to be chair of the budget.
I knew you did.
I tried to do it, and it says it's on.